Have you ever wondered what lies behind a successful brand? Is it money, fame, or a past no one could have imagined? This is the story of John Carter, a millionaire CEO who chose to live as a nameless stranger. And his journey didn't just change the lives of the forgotten, it saved his own. Hold tight to your emotions, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see life. When people think of millionaire CEOs, they imagine sharp suits, luxury cars, and lavish parties. But John Carter, he was nothing like that. As the founder and head of Haven Bites, a nationwide restaurant chain known for delicious meals, low prices, and a homey atmosphere, John lived a life of surprising simplicity. He regularly visited his restaurants, yet almost no one recognized him, because he never arrived like a boss. He showed up as an ordinary middle-aged man, wearing a faded gray hoodie, worn-out jeans, and a pair of soft, quiet eyes. That Friday night, the air was crisp with early winter chill. John walked into a Haven Bites location in a suburban neighborhood, one he rarely visited. The restaurant buzzed with life. Laughter from kids, the clink of silverware, and the hum of orders being shouted. He queued like any other customer, quietly watching every detail. How the staff greeted guests, and how the chefs moved behind the counter. He wasn't there to judge. He was there to listen, to feel. That's when he heard it. A quiet voice behind him. A young boy asked, "Hey, do we have enough to buy one burger?" John didn't turn around, but his breath caught. He heard the sound of coins rustling. Then a smaller voice replied, "Maybe if we split it." Two boys, no older than 12. Thin jackets, worn shoes, and eyes dulled by hunger. John closed his eyes for a second. His heart sank, because once he had been one of them. A hungry kid growing up in poverty, skipping meals, sneaking leftover bread just to survive. When the boys reached the counter, the older one, Liam, shyly said, "One cheeseburger, please." The cashier, a young woman named Sarah, glanced at the pile of coins. She gently said, "It's not quite enough, sweetie. I'm sorry." The younger boy, Noah, tugged at his brother's sleeve, eyes falling. "Let's just go home." That was the moment John stepped forward. He smiled at Sarah and said, "Add 2 meals to my order, please. Let the boys choose anything they like." Liam stared at him. "Mister, you don't have to." John shook his head, eyes warm. "Everyone deserves a proper meal, kid." And what he didn't know was that this small moment would spark a wave of change no one could have foreseen. Liam and Noah sat quietly at a small corner table, hands trembling as they held the warm hamburgers. They didn't devour the food. They savored it slowly, with quiet reverence. John sat at a few tables away. He didn't say a word. He simply watched. In his eyes was understanding and a flicker of nostalgia, because he knew that for some, a meal like this was nothing short of a dream. Sarah, the cashier, later told her branch manager about what had happened. A customer nearby had caught the moment on camera when John stepped in to help the boys. They didn't know who he was. The caption was simple: "A kind man pays for 2 hungry kids. Hope they have more days like this." The clip was uploaded to TikTok. Within 12 hours, it exploded. Comments flooded in. There are still good people in this world. This is the kind of news we need daily. Everyone deserves an uncle like him. But then, someone with a sharp eye commented, "Wait, isn't that John Carter, the CEO of Haven Bites?" By morning, the identity of the mystery man was confirmed. The media swarmed in. The next day, headlines were everywhere. millionaire CEO goes undercover to feed hungry kids. John Carter, not just a businessman, but the heart of Haven. When asked for a statement, John responded simply, "I didn't do anything special. I just remembered what hunger felt like and how no one helped. Today, I wanted that to be different." Haven Bites became the center of national attention. Sales skyrocketed. But more importantly, faith in human kindness was reignited. And that very response pushed John to make a bigger decision. 1 week later, he launched Haven Cares, a program that would provide weekly free meals to the homeless and offer food assistance to underprivileged children in struggling neighborhoods. But when light shines, shadows appear too. Some began digging into John's past, and what they uncovered, it could destroy everything. The spotlight blazed across every media outlet. John Carter, hailed as a new symbol of compassion, graced the covers of major magazines. TV networks lined up interviews. Inspirational YouTube channels flooded the algorithm with retellings of the anonymous CEO who fed 2 starving kids. The world applauded. But social media is never just a place for inspiration. It's also a mirror, one that reflects forgotten truths. An anonymous Twitter account posted a single sentence. "You're calling him a hero? Try running a background check on John Carter." At first, no one paid attention. But after a few reposts, the algorithm caught on. Then, everything erupted. A small tabloid dropped a bombshell. John Carter was once arrested for theft as a minor. This is your hero? The story spread like wildfire. Old records resurfaced. A copy of a juvenile arrest sheet. Jonathan A. Carter, age 14, was detained in 1993 for stealing food from a supermarket. No one mentioned he hadn't eaten in 3 days. No one cared that all he took was a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Now, the image of John as a beacon of kindness was shadowed by a long-forgotten crime. The internet is split into 2 sides. One defended him. He was just a hungry kid. Look at who he became. The other condemned. If he hid this, what else is he hiding? Stop glorifying criminals. John stayed silent. He withdrew from the cameras, shut the door to the interviews. Inside his office, he stared at an old photo. A skinny boy clutching a loaf of bread, eyes swollen, tears half dried, as police held him back. He whispered to himself, "I thought I'd left that part behind." 3 days later, John called a press conference. No PR team, i.e., no assistants, no promises. Just a single chair, a microphone, and a man willing to face the noise. "I stole a loaf of bread. I was a starving child. No mother, no family, no help. And because of that moment, because of the shame I felt, I vowed no one else should face hunger alone. I didn't hide my past. I just chose to live in a way that proves it doesn't define who I am today." The room fell silent. No applause, no walkouts. Just stillness. That evening, millions rewatched the video. Many cried, but others began to ask bigger questions. What else don't we know about John Carter? And if there are more shadows in his past, is he truly the savior people believe him to be? After the press conference, public opinion slowly settled. Many admired John Carter more than ever, not because he was perfect, but because he had the courage to face his past. The Haven Cares program continued to grow. Branches began offering free meals every Saturday. For the first time, Many struggling families felt what it was like to be treated like human beings. Liam and Noah still visited the restaurant regularly. They looked livelier now, healthier, more at ease. Their father, Uncle Daniel, had become an official line cook. He was grateful beyond words and gave the job everything he had. But then, one Monday morning, the unthinkable happened. John had just wrapped up a meeting when the phone rang. It was Daniel. Voice trembling. "John, Liam, he's gone." Police were alerted immediately. Neighborhood cameras were reviewed. The last footage showed Liam leaving school at 4. Arofi. 5 p.m. And then, nothing. No screaming, no strange figures. No clues, just an eerie void in the crowd of the city. John panicked, but forced himself to stay calm. He joined the search alongside the family. For 2 days, they scoured alleyways and questioned anyone they could. Sarah, the cashier, and several co-workers formed their own volunteer search team. The city began paying attention. Then the media got involved. Basete, once helped by Haven Bites, CEO. Now missing, could this be tied to an old grudge? That headline made John freeze. He had never considered the possibility, but now he realized something terrifying. His fame might have put others in danger. Then came the email. An anonymous message landed in the internal inbox of Haven Bites. "Want to see the boy again? Stay silent. Don't involve the cops. You owe the past. And now, it's collecting. Sander. Grain." John sat in silence in his office, his hands clenched. That name, Grain. He hadn't heard it in 27 years. A man once known as a petty gang boss. A predator who exploited street kids to steal and run errands. The very man who forced a young orphaned John to steal bread all those years ago. John had believed he was arrested, but Grain was alive, and he wanted revenge. John couldn't go to the police. He couldn't run. He had only one choice: face the darkness himself. He opened a worn wooden box buried in the back of a drawer. Inside were old files, maps, and memories he had tried to forget. The places Grain used to control. John remembered them all. And once again, John became the man behind the mask. No longer the polished CEO, just a man searching for the boy, who reminded him of who he used to be. That night, John drove alone. Back into the South Side, the place where his childhood was stolen. The streets are now more decayed than ever, but the past was still alive, and it was waiting for him to return. Night fell like a thick black curtain, swallowing the city whole. John drove through streets he once vowed never to set foot on again. The South Side, the neighborhood where hunger, cold, and crime had devoured his childhood. Where kids had no one waiting at home, only gangs, violence, and fear. He parked in front of an abandoned apartment building, the exact location marked on the old map. The front gate was chained shut with rusted links, but John knew another way in. The basement entrance. The rules hadn't changed. Grain never changed the game. John stepped inside, gripping a flashlight in one hand and a worn leather wallet in the other. Inside the wallet wasn't money, but an old photo. John, 14, standing beside another boy. Kevin, the best friend he'd ever had. The only one who had tried to save him from Grain. The boy who vanished without a trace after one assignment. The air inside the building was thick and ashy. The first floor was a wasteland of empty rooms, tagged with graffiti. But the third floor had light. Dim, yellow, but still glowing. And then, there were voices. John climbed the stairs. His legs trembled, not from fear, but from memories clawing their way back to life. Neasos, third floor. The last door at the end of the hall creaked open. A man stood there, thin, tall, a face weathered like old leather, eyes that bore the scars of decades in the dark. "Grain, still remember how to get in, huh?" He smirked. "I knew you'd come, Jonathan. You owe me a lot." John said nothing. His eyes scanned the room and landed on something familiar. Liam's jacket draped over a chair. The boy was nearby. He knew it. Grain dropped into a worn armchair like a king of ruins. "You were my best kid," he said. "I fed you, kept you alive, taught you the rules. And you repaid me by ratting me out. The cops nearly killed me because of you." John's voice was cold. "You used us like tools. I don't regret walking away from that hell." Grain stood up, eyes gleaming with fury. "I lost everything because of you. Now, I'll make sure you lose what I did." He snapped his fingers. Two large men stepped out from a back room. John didn't flinch. With one hand, he quietly flicked open his wallet. Beneath the photo was a small GPS tracker, now blinking. Sarah and the Haven Bites team had been tracking it and had already notified the police. John just needed to stall. He met Grain's stare. "What do you want? Money? Revenge? Or do you just want to prove I'm as broken as you think I am?" Grain sneered, stepping closer. "I want you to watch that boy fall. The way I watched Kevin fall right in front of me." Those words hit like a blade. Kevin hadn't run away. Grain had killed him. John had never known. Until now. Just as Grain raised his hand to give the signal, the sound of sirens wailed outside. Grain turned. John sprang into action, lunging at one thug, knocking him back, and sprinting toward the side room. The door flew open. Liam was tied up, eyes red and swollen. "Liam! It's me!" John shouted. He rushed over, cutting the rope, pulling the boy into his arms. They bolted through the back exit. Just as police stormed the building, tackling the gang members, Grain vanished, once again slipping into the shadows like a ghost that never dies. John held Liam tight on the ride home. The boy buried his face into John's shoulder, sobbing silently. "I thought I'd never see my dad again," John whispered. "I lost a friend once. But I won't lose you." After that harrowing night, John was utterly exhausted. Liam was safe, but John knew the wounds ran deeper than flesh. They had pierced something fragile. A child's trust, a stolen sense of peace, a flicker of safety that had just begun to return. Daniel, Liam's father, held his son tightly, tears pouring down his face. Sarah and the Haven Bites staff took turns staying by the family's side. No one blamed John. In fact, more people admired him because he hadn't abandoned the past. He had returned to it to rescue another child from the same darkness he once barely escaped. But John knew the story wasn't over. Grain was still out there. And more importantly, John hadn't truly forgiven himself. He went back to the old building. This time, not to confront, but to lay it to rest. On a moss-covered wall, he wrote in white chalk, "I was once part of this place, but I'm not here to hide. I'm here to tell the story. Weeks later, at the Haven Bites headquarters, another press conference was held. But this one had no scandal. No defense, just a man standing under the lights, sharing his truth. John spoke openly about everything. His childhood on the streets, the years under Grain's manipulation, and the pain of losing Kevin, the only friend who had once sacrificed everything to help him escape. No one interrupted. No one criticized. Only silence. And then applause. Not polite, not performative, but raw, powerful, and unrelenting. I founded Haven Bites to provide warm meals, John said. But I've realized people don't just need food. They need belief. They need hope. They need to know that someone once fell and still got back up. From that moment on, Haven Cares entered a new chapter. Not just a place that served meals, but a place where stories were shared. A new center was founded, named Kevin House, dedicated to homeless youth and teenagers who had survived violence or abuse. Here they received food, job training, and something even more vital: the chance to hear stories from people like John, not to scare them, but to empower them to survive. Liam became a symbol of the program. The boy who had once been kidnapped now stood proudly before crowds, telling his story, not with fear, but with clarity. I used to think grown-ups only cause pain, he said. But now I know some grown-ups are willing to risk everything to save someone like me. John watched from the back of the room, his eyes glistening with quiet emotion. A few months later, Haven Bites celebrated its 10-year anniversary. There were no fireworks, no champagne, just a simple evening in the restaurant's courtyard. Over 200 people, once been helped by the program, gathered, shared stories, and ate simple meals, just like on the very first day. John stepped on stage. No microphone, just his steady, heartfelt voice. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who was helped when he needed it most. And now I'm doing the same. One day, one meal, one story at a time. He didn't need anyone to know he was the CEO. He didn't need his name carved on a wall. He just needed one thing: the smile of someone who once knew pain and now had found hope. One crisp autumn morning, John stood before the mirror, adjusting his plain brown jacket. No logo, no symbols of power, just a man carrying a story. Today was different. For the first time, Kevin House was opening its doors to a group of new faces, teenagers from juvenile rehabilitation centers, kids who had made mistakes, kids who had hurt others. But now, they were trying to find their way back to the light. The courtyard was full. Children, staff, volunteers, and even adults who had once been helped by the program now returned to pay it forward. John stepped up and opened with his familiar, gentle smile. I used to sit exactly where you are. No direction. No one believed in me, unsure of what tomorrow would look like. But I stand here today not because I'm great, but because someone once gave me a chance. The entire courtyard fell silent. Dozens of young eyes looked up at him, as if he were the only light in their long, dark night. After the talk, a boy approached. 17, short black hair, eyes deep with something familiar. Can I ask you something? He said shyly. Did you ever live in Southside? Do you know someone named Kevin? John froze. Yes, he said softly. Kevin was the closest friend I ever had. The boy paused, then pulled out a worn photograph from his pocket. In it, a little boy sitting on the shoulders of a young man. That man was Kevin. Kevin was my father, the boy said. My name is Elijah, My mom never talked much about him, just that he died doing something good. I started looking into it recently, and for the first time, I found your name. John's hands trembled as he took the photo, as if holding a piece of his soul, long lost but never forgotten. Kevin, the boy who had given his life so that John could live. And now, his son, a teenager who had once wandered off track, was finding his way back through the very program John created. No writer could script a more full-circle moment, and no one could understand what it meant. To give something back to the person who once saved you. John embraced Elijah, not like a mentor, but like a friend returning through the mist of memory. Kevin would be so proud, John said, tears in his eyes. And you, Elijah, you've got your whole future ahead. We'll walk this road together. A year later, Elijah became the youngest youth mentor at Kevin House, teaching life skills and cooking to younger kids. Daniel, Liam's father, was promoted to regional manager, and Liam, now 13, stood on stage sharing his story. No longer the hungry boy peeking through a restaurant window. John no longer needed to go undercover, because now he was part of every story being written. In every meal served, every smile exchanged, every laugh echoing through once silent homes. Some wounds feel like they'll stay with you forever. But you know what? When healed right, they don't just fade, they become strength. I was once a child left behind. Today, I welcome those children back home. And if you're listening right now, if you feel lost, please don't let go. Because somewhere out there, there's someone who believes you still deserve a second chance. Uncle John didn't just give me food. He gave me a reason to believe life could still be good. This story may be fictional, but the emotions are all real. Because somewhere, someone is still fighting. Not to win, but simply not to give up. And if you're standing at a crossroads, remember, all it takes is one person to believe in you, and everything can change.